After Officer Darren Wilson fatally shot Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, many people called for police officers to carry tasers in addition to guns.
Tasers are normally considered non-lethal weapons, but in some cases, and we've seen this happen, tasers can cause death. Last week, police in Gibraltar responding to a domestic disturbance call tased a suspect who later died.
All right, joining us right now to talk about this, Ron Scott from the Coalition of Police Brutality. And back with us, Rick Ector and Macomb County Sheriff Tony Wickersham. Ron, let me start with you. Are you saying that tasers should not be used by police officers?
Let me correct something first. The tasers are not non-lethal. They're less than lethal. And taser protocols have been initiated. There was a very famous case up in Canada where an individual was tasered, and in fact, the taser protocols had to be changed so that individuals could not shoot individuals above the waist. You're asking people to make a large decision. A taser is a neuromuscular interruptive device and in fact can cause death, and in fact has caused death. So the training, even by taser, emphasizes that you have to make reasonable choices as to when you deploy and how you deploy that weapon. And so therefore, I'm concerned about that people think of them as guns. They think of them as a gun, not as an alternative. And that's the problem. It's the psychology of that.
Sheriff, I'm just curious, your deputies, do they carry tasers?
Yes, they do.
So when do you tell them it is okay to tase a suspect?
You know, again, each situation they're confronted with, there's a continuum, a use of force continuum, and at some point when it escalates to an active resistant, and again, they're either going to move into open hands and trying to take them down, then you can use the taser.
Well, how resistant do they have to be?
Well, again, resistant where you're going to come into contact with using force, you know, by hands and moving on and trying to effectuate the arrest.
So for an officer in Macomb County in your department to use a taser, is it less criteria than to use a gun? In other words, you could use a taser, you are freer to use a taser more than you would be freer to use a gun.
Yes.
If that's the case, then where do you draw that line? Because tasers are dangerous.
Well, again, you know, each situation, we could sit up here and say each situation we have to look at. Unfortunately, in this job, bad things are going to happen. We could be sitting here and having basically a fisticuff type fight where somebody dies and no weapon, no taser was used. But during the arrest and the resistance, you know, some people have died. In my opinion, the taser, since we've been using it, has been a great deterrent. And let me just give you the statistics. Last year, we had 290 deployments. We took out a taser 290 times. We used it 90. 200 times we gained compliance from that suspect. So that saved the deputies from being injured, the suspect from being hurt, taken into custody without
issue. Would you have had 100% compliance if you took out your gun?
You don't know. You don't know.
Well,
I'm just saying.
And of course, there's training that has to be involved with a taser just as well. Do you think that maybe our cops using them too easily, in your opinion?
I just want to jump in. I don't want to stop Rick from saying, but you know, we've had.
It's hard to do. I'm shocked here. He's not saying anything.
We've had cases specifically in Macomb County and Warren and so forth, where there were major settlements that were rendered in relationship to, in one case, where an officer admitted that the training was improper, that they didn't get sufficient training in relationship to use of the tasers. We fought against tasers being used in the city of Detroit, especially with the consent decrees and so forth. And over 10 years, they haven't had problems. The shootings have gone down without the use of tasers. So the departments that talk about, you know, tasers have protected us and, you know, non-compliance and so forth.
Would you rather that they use guns?
No, they have. They are taught defensive. They're taught defensive holds. They're taught. I'd rather them use their mouth and their mind. And essentially, the compliance in this country at this point, police officers have to deal with this, has been the question of use of force and control.
Well, no, I'm going to jump in. I've been silent for far too long.
we're going to go one
I
show
personally
without
don't believe that there's any issue with law enforcement officers using tasers. There's this general perception that they're less than lethal, but we do know from various cases that come up from time to time that individuals have died. I think the only consideration that needs to be made is that the department that's actually using tasers have appropriate policies to discern when a taser should be deployed. And I think Sheriff Wickersham described that very accurately. You know, the only problem that comes up is when you have people who aren't properly trained. There was a case, I believe it was in South Carolina, where I believe it was a reserve officer who thought he was reaching for his taser and reached for a gun by mistake and shot and killed the guy. And then
allegedly by mistake.
And then he was, you know, remorseful and allegedly said, I'm sorry,
Sure.
and it was a big problem.
No, and I agree. When officers, and we train our deputies, and we train all our correction staff, everybody, when we're dealing with any individual, you know, communication is the key. I mean, we've had deputies, and I've even done it. I've taken a 6-foot, 5-pound, 300-pound man, and I've been able to talk him in the back of my police car. Okay? So again, it's what we do. We do go through a course. We do verbal judo. We try and talk them into the car. But we get to a point where, you know, the talking's not going to work. Suspect's getting agitated, there's going to be a resistance, and then the deputies have to make those determinations on what level of force they're going to use to effectuate that arrest.
And sometimes, obviously, these deputies, officers, they only have seconds to make these decisions.
Right.
I mean, in a case with a taser, the outcome's going to be much different if you have to pull out a gun versus a taser.
But do you think, though, Sheriff, if I'm a cop on the street and some guy's giving me lip, anybody, I'm going to be more likely to whip out my taser and zap him?
You know,
I would hope not.
No.
But that's what Ron's saying,
it
right?
happens.
That's what Ron's saying.
But we just can't take that and just blanket around the whole profession.
Yeah.
You know? So
a couple of, I think trigger happy, but taser happy. That's what you're saying, Ron, right?
Yeah.
And it's on the leadership of that organization and those supervisors and people in that organization, that they know they got a trigger-happy taser cop. Then they need to bring them in, get them training, do the discipline, do whatever they can to get them.
I'm going to give you a personal experience with
10 seconds, though, because we're almost out of time.
I was at the airport, and I forgot I had my watch on, so I said, well, let me go back. Let me go back through. No. The guy threatened to, he said, do you want to be tasered?
Did you comply?
You took the watch
Mission
off fast, I bet.
No, I did not comply.
All right, thank you. Well, that's it for this edition of Let It Rip Weekend. Thank you, everyone.
No, I was civilly
Fox News
disobedient.
Sunday is next.